I said, if something goes wrong, police or
The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Riv, and we've got a firestorm of controversy here. Apparently, you know, when everybody takes out their phones and videos everything, so somebody videoed our illustrious mayor.
And state representative.
And state representative who's guilty by acquiescence.
That's
too.
right.
Basically showing their true colors, that they are true elitists and that they don't really care about the people of Fall River. We know his history. He said a while ago he blamed the minorities for the educational issues.
Right.
That's corroborated. It's true. We know that. Mm-hmm. He also has a history, and I think you brought it out, about being dismissive of students and telling them basically they were going to be failures. And then he got caught at one of his own fundraisers saying people who disagreed with him should go jump in the Taunton River.
That's right.
So now he has taken it upon himself to fundamentally discriminate and attack someone because of their housing status and supposedly their implied financial status. So before we get into this, I'm going to remind the mayor that he has an obligation that he swore to. The Constitution of the state of Massachusetts, part of the first Article 4. This is not the entire thing because it goes on to say based on anything in the United States Constitution. The second part, the Part 5, this is Part 4. I want you to listen to this, Mr. Mayor. The people of this Commonwealth have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state, and do forever hereafter shall exercise and enjoy every power, jurisdiction, and right. People who don't own homes, people who live in public housing, people who live in apartments, they get to vote and they have a right to be heard on any issue. And when you use that as a pejorative, you're violating not only your oath, you're violating your obligation as a human being to treat everybody equally. Now, Part of the first Article 5 clearly states that all power residing originally in the people. It doesn't say people who own a home, people with an income in excess of $100,000, people who only have banker, lawyer, and developer friends. It says the people, meaning all the people. All power residing originally in the people and being derived from them, the several magistrates and officers of government vested with authority, whether legislative, that's you, in case you forgot what branch you're in, executive or judicial, are their substitutes and agents, not their lords and masters, and are at all times accountable to them. What went on at that meeting was inexcusable. It shows a total disregard for people. When you tell an individual, and you use it as a pejorative, that go buy a house, and then he says, and if you buy a house, I'll be right behind you, and you rehab it. Well, what are you saying? If you've got, I only deal with people who have enough money to buy a home. How about all the people that are living, the 2/3 of the United States that are living paycheck to paycheck? How about the fact that the majority of people in Fall River live in apartments? How about the people in the inner cities, like New York, where the majority of people do live in apartments? And some rich people live in apartments on Fifth Avenue. But you'd like them anyway because they're rich. This is inexcusable, and it is unacceptable for any public official. You can think that way, and I know a lot of them do. But the fact is, when you articulate that in a public meeting, you don't belong in office. And the individual deserves an apology. And you can try to spin it any way you want, but you can't spin what you said. And you said it. It's on there. And I know people are complaining to CJ already that they didn't get your face. We didn't do the video.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
So don't blame us. But, you know, the only complaint that your minions can have is that those words were said by a Paul Coogan impersonator or a ventriloquist. But they weren't. They were said by you. And it is a reaffirmation of what you've been saying throughout your tenure as mayor. You never talk about your apartment-dwelling friends, your friends who can't afford an apartment or can't afford a house. I don't know if you have any of those types of friends. You talk about your banker friends, your lawyer friends, your developer friends, your state representative friends, your Congress friends, and all the rest of them, Richie Riches. So what was said can't be taken back. You showed your disdain for the average people in Fall River. And the irony is that that's the majority of people in Fall River. So I hope this is a wake-up call to everybody who's trying to pay for gas, pay for their food, make rent, watching their rents going through the roof because of your lack of compassion, gets to the polls in the next election, because this is outrageous. And I'm going to let you say a few words, because I have a personal thing I have to deal with him, because my name was mentioned at that meeting.
Yes, it was. I heard it, and I was extremely surprised. I will tell you now, here's the take that I took on some of the comments, okay? And it was, and again, this is my take. This isn't exactly what was said. I'm not paraphrasing, nothing. You live in public housing. You don't matter. Shut up. That was the take I got.
Yeah.
Is that the take you got?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't deserve. Why should we listen to you?
Exactly.
And that's the context it was in.
Exactly.
And listen, we're not going to play it because we're going to have to play the thing over the microphone. It's on Spindle City Straight Talk.
Yes, it is.
Go watch it.
And it will be on YouTube later on today. And I'm telling, and you can search for it then. And it's going to be tagged with Paul Coogan's name, so you know it's going to happen.
Well, you can watch the video, but you're right. It was said in
There's nothing much to see on the video. It's a desktop.
Yeah, because they were talking about housing.
That's
and it's
right.
like, how dare you? You don't get to talk about housing. You live in public housing. It was a pejorative. It was used in a context like, who are you? You're just dirt. Who? I will remind you that Mayor Flanagan lived in public housing, grew up in a project.
That's right.
I'll remind you that Abraham Lincoln lived in a one-room log cabin and became the president of the United States and one of the most influential
And he was
presidents.
self-educated.
Self-educated, too. Never went to college.
That's right.
That's right. And so, listen, for you to be that dismissive shows you nothing more than an elitist and possibly a racist.
Now, the issue that was being discussed was about affordable housing. So let's make this perfectly clear. It was about affordable housing. And when you're speaking about affordable housing, people, and you and our station manager got into a bit of a tete-a-tete out there, and how do you do it? Well, I'll tell you how you do it, because there are companies that do it.
That's
Peabody Properties is a key example of how it's done. And how it's done is tax incentives, which are given right now to market rate housing developers. They're getting tax incentives. Why can't affordable housing people get tax incentives? We hate this CPA, okay? But the CPA currently has money still set aside for affordable housing. So somebody who decides to develop some affordable housing can go to the CPA and say, look, we're putting together affordable housing. This is it. And, you know, nobody's saying that this is going to be an easy solution, but when you have companies already that are doing this, and Peabody Properties is one of many that are doing it, maybe we should go to them because they seem to be the experts on how to do this. It makes perfect sense to go to them and say, how are you doing this?
Yeah, not only that, CJ, and Keith and I had a nice discussion, but we're not reinventing the wheel.
No.
Listen, New York City's had rent control for decades.
That's right.
New York dealt with affordable housing. People live in New York, and New York is one of the most expensive states in the world to live in, but people of moderate and low incomes live in New York City because they have figured out how to do it. They have rent control. They have various. Listen, there are people who know how to do this. There are incentives. Anything is doable. And like you said, there are already people doing this. Every major city has some form of ability to have affordable housing.
That's right.
And let's again, for Paul's sake, because he doesn't seem to be able to grasp basic fundamentals of this, public housing is not affordable housing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's get that again, because him and his public housing, because they went there at that meeting again with Viola, and I'll get to that one where she was so full of BS, it was incredible. But just let me get back, because my name was mentioned. I think Nelson said that he was talking about the public housing, and he mentioned me, and Paul, in a pejorative way, said, yeah, Chippa knows everything. So I'm going to address that. Chippa doesn't know everything, but Chippa knows a hell of a lot about collective bargaining, healthcare, and retirement, because I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And your city councilors, most of them know that. And you knew that because we had a PEC meeting, but you don't want to acknowledge it. So let me tell you, Paul, do not do that again, because I have a record. You've been in the city with your hands in your pocket doing nothing for 30 years. You walked around the school department and you collected a paycheck. Did you ever do anything as our education continued to deteriorate? Did you ever come up with anything, any suggestion, while you were in the school system, while you were on a school committee? No. You did absolutely nothing except do what all political ticks do, suck your paycheck up and go to the bank. Now, Jerry Fallon fought for education.
I have a great deal of respect for Jerry.
Jerry Fallon fought for it. Billy Kayla fought. Rebecca Cusick fought the fight. Jimmy Wilcox fought the fight. And you know what you did? Nothing. You cashed your paycheck. You want to tell me? You want to say, like I don't know anything, that I'm blowing smoke? You've never heard anybody challenge my record. Here's the letter that I sent to Joan Medeiros. When you made the fatal mistake of appointing me to your transition team, and I was on the financial subcommittee, and I covered the three biggest ticket items: unfunded pension liability, health care, and collective bargaining. And I gave them proof of everything I said, and they never had another meeting. Because all your banker friends and real estate friends who were on that committee, there were only two people on that subcommittee that weren't bankers or real estate people. That was Joe Castro and I. I've been fighting, just like Billy Kayla, for the people for a long time. Here's the one. See this? City workers, choice, pay raise, or health care. This was June 21st, 1990. Do the math, how many years ago that was. And you know the result of this, Paul? I filed a grievance. We hired Ernst & Young. We found the city robbed millions of our dollars and put it in their fund. We weren't out of money. And you, personally, got 3 free months Blue Cross, and an $18 premium reduction for the rest of that calendar year, because that's how the city paid us back our money. But you never thanked me for that, did you? You just put the money in your pocket. And then in 2008, they did it again to you, and I helped Jack Fernandez get down to the bottom of it, and again, we got holidays. But as usual, you know nothing about anything. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And I'm not going to tell a plumber how to do plumbing, and I'm not going to tell an electrician how to do electricians. But don't try to imply that I'm somebody that doesn't have any kind of credibility when I speak on certain subjects. Council knows it and you know it. You did nothing. All you ever did is do what every politically appointed political tick does. You sucked up your paycheck and did nothing. So that's the end of that story. So the next time my name is mentioned, just keep your mouth shut unless you want to come in here and tell me what you did over the last 35 years.
Well, and remember, it wasn't only him that was sucking off the system. Many members of his family. I'm not going to say how many, because you know he'll say I don't have that many. Many members of his family, whether extended or immediate, all got jobs. And as a matter of fact, he has a family member who has a job as the human resources director in the school department. And he was advised by human resources to excuse himself from the Matt Malone thing because it was a human resources issue. And he had a family member, because that was a conflict. But every hire that has come before him, he's voted on. Isn't that a conflict?
Of course.
But remember, I follow the law. Remember this comment? I follow the law. I follow the ordinances. I follow the charter.
Well, apparently he doesn't follow the Constitution, because he says that people... What's the next thing, Paul? Are you going to now try to get something passed in Fall River where people are always talking about voter suppression? Mm-hmm. And these liberals say that asking someone to prove that they're actually who they are to vote is voter suppression, which it isn't. It's just trying to have,
checks and balances,
and voter accountability. But what are you going to do? After your performance at that meeting, are you going to require, in order to vote in the city of Fall River, you have to own a home? And you have to have an income in excess of $100,000 to have the right to vote in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? I just read the Constitution of this state, which you swore an oath to uphold. For you to treat another person like that is inexcusable for anybody. But for a public official to say that in a public meeting is just beyond the pale. It just doesn't work. And while we're on that meeting, let's get to Carol, because I know in that meeting she tried to spin, because now they're going to be spinning it from City Hall.
Right.
I didn't mean it. No, he's not going to say he didn't. Of course he meant it. Listen to the venom dripping from his voice when he said, like, go buy a house.
And then rent it for $100 a month and go bankrupt.
Yeah. But then he said, but then he had his other minion that's on the board of the Flint. That clown said, well, put your money where your mouth is. Well, stupid. Moosehead, that guy, I forgot his name. Well, dummy. If somebody can barely afford the rent they're paying, they can't buy a house. So your solution is to let the people who are being impacted and who are rapidly losing every cent to inflation, for them to buy a house, because you're another elitist. You're another Richie Rich. And then Carol said, oh, yeah, you're talking about public housing. They were talking about public housing. Again, apparently every elected official that represents Fall River does not know the difference between public housing and affordable housing.
Right.
They're on affordable housing, but they got over to public housing and advertising, and we know why.
Yep.
It was Carlton versus brother got a
That's
pay
right.
raise based on occupancy, and there was signs all over. And actually, your son-in-law used to bring people in from Pennsylvania.
That's right.
All the time that were coming to Fall River based on that.
That's right.
But Carol, you know what it got me? Because Carol said something to the effect, and you can look at it on it. I don't know if it's on that particular video.
I almost have it locked into my head. She turned around and said, I came here to hear issues related to the neighborhood. And she started to leave the room, and Joe Cavallo turned around and said, this is a neighborhood issue. And he was very firm about it.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard Joe be that firm with a
Yep.
politician. I know he has in the past, but it's the first time I heard it. And I'll tell you, I don't know what happened, but I guess she sat back down. And again, she is missing the boat. She doesn't understand. And you know why she doesn't understand? Because her husband and her are elitists, as you said. Okay, and her husband is making money off of market rate housing.
Yeah, well, look, this is what she said. She said, you brought it up, and, you know, we have more than we need, but that's why we're doing this. We're trying to bring in people with money who can pay the bills.
Right.
Well, you know, that's political rhetoric on her part, because that's crap. Because we know damn well that probably 75% of this city is living on fairly low incomes. You are not going to get 75% of these people replaced by rich people in market rate housing, because we all know that rich people, when they move into a city, they look at what? If they have children, the first thing they look at is education. We have a failing education system. The second thing they look at is crime. And it was just a fentanyl bust or a pseudo-fentanyl bust. And what's Paul going to say about that? Nothing again. You know, our city, all the time, problems. But you think people are going to come here? And even if they do come, you think they're going to shop here or do something? No. It's going to be a failure, just like the other attempts, like Riverview Towers, etc. But she said, we're doing this to fix this, bringing in rich people. Well, you know what my question is to Carol? Weren't you the governor's counsel for a very long time? She was.
Yes, she was.
She was in Boston for a long time with the governor's ear, the big
That's
man,
right.
the big guy in the state. And now she's a state representative. And her husband was involved in this 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But you just noticed this now? You just figured out a way to address this issue now? You didn't know this existed when it started because you were around. You didn't notice it? You didn't notice what our housing was? You didn't know we were advertising? You were friendly with Carlton Viveras. You still are. You didn't know this?
And I can
Your
tell
husband didn't know it? Your husband was bringing in the Derby horses, you know, the Bounty, and dealing with what he wanted to do. Do you think it might have something to do with you finally noticed this problem when there was a lot of money to be made with market rate housing because the rail's coming? It took you 30 years to have an epiphany? That's baloney. That's baloney. Don't try to make it, you're always trying to make it like you're doing the people a favor. Did you do the people a favor when you eliminated the bus category?
I know.
Did you do the people a favor? There's a big question about that. So don't go there, because let me tell you something. And the lies, we don't pay to the MBTA. So if you look at this, I'm going to read you some little stuff. Chapter 161A. And you know what the title of that chapter is? The Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. This is what it says in Section 6, ballot question for cities and towns regarding issue of joining transportation area. Any city or town seeking to receive transportation service from the authority may place upon the official ballot any biennial or regular special city election or annual or special town election the following question. See, they don't even give you, they don't even let you do this. Shall That's a shall. It means you're done.
You have to.
You have to. You're done. Once you're in, you're like the mafia. You don't get out. They pull you right back in. Shall be added to the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, unquote, yes or no. Now you say we don't pay a penny. We pay a penny. Because if you go to that same chapter and you go down to section 9, listen to what this says. I want you to listen to this, Carol. Because what you guys do is tell half-truths. And Paul doesn't like it because I read laws. And he just makes up things as he goes along. Section 9, financial assistance from cities and towns. Section 9, notwithstanding the provisions of any general special law to the contrary, all cities and towns of the authority shall contribute to the Massachusetts Bay Authority State and Local Assistance Fund. So then, on or before March 1st of each year, the authority shall certify to the state treasurer the amount to be assessed to each city and town as aforesaid on the account of the ensuing fiscal year. The state treasurer shall, on behalf of the Commonwealth, assess each city and town on the account of such year in accordance with the provisions of Section 20, Chapter 59, beginning on July 1st, 2001, a city or town that is also a member of Regional Transit Authority or that any time joins a regional shall have 100% of the amount assessed for the operation credited against their share of the assessment made under this section. So in case you don't know how to read laws, Paul, Carol, we pay the MBTA every year, but we're credited. And right now, we're paying so much to CERTA that we've covered the entire bill for the MBTA.
Right.
It's a tax credit. We pay it into the MBTA, and next year, when you get the assessment under Chapter 10, Section 35T, that's predicated on inflation, for the year, the worst year we've had inflationary in 40 years, it's going to go. So it means two things. We're paying way too much for CERTA because we're paying more than we pay for the MBTA.
Right.
So we're paying nothing. We're getting credit for it. We are paying. We just got deferred. That payment was deferred because of a tax credit. So next year it may be greater than. And now I wrote you an email that said I wanted the projected figure because also you removed the bus credit. Your legislature removed the bus credit.
Right.
Now, does that mean that we're going to lose the regional credit for our bus service? And if we do, are we going to have to pay 100% of CERTA and pay the MBTA? Or are we going to get a lesser credit? Because there's another section in here that talks about a 50% credit. But these are all the questions that go unanswered because you people just want to say, shut up, stupid. You don't own a house. Check the box and take our word for it. Well, you're the same people that are going to take the $3 billion that we're going to get back according to the law and change the law. You're the same people that didn't give us a tax, didn't give us a break on the gasoline tax. You're the same people that wouldn't give us any tax breaks, ever. And you want us to go, that goes in with the other promises that are never kept, like the checks in the mail. These are all questions, and they're legitimate questions that have to be asked and have to be answered. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. And most people won't take the time to do the research, but we will.
Imagine that, you read. I'll tell you, it gets really bad when you have to go through and act like a lawyer.
Yeah.
And read all of this stuff to prove you're right. To prove you're right. I mean, you and Nelson have been on top of this since its get-go. I've been on top of it since its get-go. And I'll tell you now, the lies and the misrepresentations or the half-truths, whatever you want to call it, are ridiculous. And this video proves that the mayor could care less about the people of Fall River and the status of the people. He only cares about the status of his banker friends and the status of his developer friends, and his lawyer friends. And this is what we get.
I think
we
he's
get
going
the
to change
shaft.
the city motto to let them eat cake.
Oh, well, they're going to
Let them eat cake.
They're going to redesign the website, and they're offering $500 for somebody who comes up with a new logo. $500. You know, people pay thousands. Jays will pay $10,000, I think.
I do. A guillotine with the over the top saying "Let them eat cake."
There you go. Hey, I want to thank you all for watching. Have a great Labor Day weekend. We won't be here on Monday. We'll see you on Wednesday. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching.
Have a great Labor Day. Remember the poor people.